Hey brothers and sisters, if you haven't seen the Going to Memorial as an apostate video yet, you should watch that because there's a shit ton of spoilers that may not make a lot of sense if you haven't seen that yet. So go watch that first. I'll have a link in the bio. Oh, that video was difficult to make. It was shot in 2019. There seemed to be a couple of comments that didn't notice the titles and the pop-ups that said it was shot in 2019. I was given the opportunity to check out the memorial stuff for 2020. They pre-recorded it. I'm going to be coming out with some stuff covering that soon. I just didn't feel like it was worth this year risking my life and my health by going to a small memorial with a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses and or listening to it when it's pre-recorded by the governing body on the jw.org website. And it is the same toxic shit that we hear every year. You're not good enough, you're shitty, and you owe everything to Jehovah, and he's only using the organization, the Watchtower, so basically just be a mindless zombie and do what we tell you to do. The toxicity that was the 2019 memorial. Back when I announced that I was going to do it last summer and go back to the memorial, a lot of people gave me a lot of shit. They're like, why the fuck would you do that? What are you thinking? Like, just get over it. You should focus on you and you do you. Don't do this to yourself. And a lot of them, they didn't know what was going on without the context, so they came up with their own assumptions. But I had a reason, and if you watched it, you know the reason why I went back is because I didn't realize growing up in a Jehovah's Witness culture and group that that's all I associated with, unless I was out to convert someone from school or the 5 times that I saw my family, my worldly blood family, how toxic everyone is and how someone can be taught to love or want the approval of people that are toxic and constantly putting you down and constantly making you feel like shit. And I realize that's a technique from abusive relationship therapists, Combating Cult Mind Control book, and a bunch of research and just looking up being woke and how you actually should have relationships and communication and understanding that style is pure abuse. I myself had been through a ton of abuse, and the first time I went back to the memorial was an emotional experience, and I was angry and upset and flustered. I didn't really talk too much about my abuse. And then the second year, 2019, came along, and I was already talking to Erwin Zalkin and his crew, the lawyers responsible for going after Watchtower with the most cases of child abuse. I knew that I didn't have a ton of proof on my side besides word of mouth, and to me that didn't feel right. And then I was hoping to go back home and get some clarity and find an elder that I knew that would ignore their brainwashing and want to do what was right. Because my family and my mom, most of them won't speak to me, including my mother, unless I probably subpoena her in the court of law in order to speak about a confession about some of the shit that she said and has been through. So what sparked this is I was able to get a bit of a confession out of a former JW who was close to me and my family and circle of friends, and gave me a few leads on what I could do. There were several people that did that. You know who you are. I can't say who they are because they're one of them is Pimo and one of them is Pomo, but my heart goes out to you, and you know who you are, and I thank you all the time when I see you in person. I knew that child abuse was rampant, but I didn't know that it was out of control. I didn't know that it was basically a sex ring for child molesters and a safe haven for child abusers to post up, find children to abuse, and just go crazy. I ended up hearing more and more stories. I met Candace Conti, the first girl who won a multi-million-dollar case against the Jehovah's Witnesses about her abuse and the cover-up. I met the elders involved there. One of them was disfellowship for trying to stick up for her. Myself was on a news special last year with Mark Albert that opened up my eyes further. If you haven't seen that, I'll have a link in the description.
These 13 men and women grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses.
How many of you are telling your story for the first time on television?
I feel honored to be in this room with all of these survivors.
Now all adults and living in different cities, we brought them together in California for the largest television group interview of its kind.
Plus, on top of that, almost every abuse survivor that I had met, something had happened to them. They had had some kind of stories of elders just sweeping it under the rug, whether it was domestic abuse, usually sexual abuse, the obvious mental and verbal abuse that a lot of abuse survivors go through. I just felt like I didn't have any proof besides the leaked policies the elders had from the letters from the governing body. And then I knew that talking to Erwin and his law firm that it wouldn't be hard to prove, but I wanted solid proof. Plus I wanted to go and try to talk to somebody that had some kind of sense in the congregations that I grew up in. And I felt at the time and for many years after my disfellowshipping, that I owed some loyalty to these loving elders. I felt that more could be done and no one was going to do that work except for me. So I sucked that shit up, and I knew that I probably wasn't gonna get anywhere, and that I knew that it probably wouldn't give me any closure, despite me wanting a better outcome than what had happened. I was just looking for someone who had a heart, and at least I'd have some evidence of it. I remember going, it was a slightly less depressing feeling than the 2018 one, because I hadn't seen my friends and family in a couple of years from my disfellowshipping. And it was very overwhelming the first year in 2018 of looking around and seeing the disgusted faces and the judgment and the hate, and pretty much nobody said hi to me. But in last year's 2019, it was surprising. There was two people. One of them was cut out of the video. He actually didn't end up getting recorded because I wasn't recording when he was standing right next to me. They're very kind, and it was that fake niceness, that fake love bombing tactics of trying to actually pretend like they were interested in me as a person, even though it was nice and it was different for a change. My guard was up and my walls were up. I was like, what's your angle? And I hate thinking and feeling that about a person. I was able to use some of my old connections as an advantage. One of the old elders that I went to study with to baptism, I still love him and his family, and I believe deep down he's one of those few elders that does have a good heart. I ended up finding out that he stepped down as an elder because of some personal things that was going on with his family. And I knew them. I knew a lot of stuff happened with him and his family, and I knew that he did have a good heart, even though he was pretty brainwashed, and he was born and raised, I think he was third generation JW. But he's the one that got me the number to the elder who was giggling the whole time in the 2019 meetup afterwards, which just happened a week or two after. And during over text, he called me and he was very friendly, and I remembered that the main elder who was giggling in the video, I can't say their name, he said that he'd love to talk to me about the depression that I was going through, and how I was feeling about my child abuse growing up. When I showed up to the location, which was just some rinky-dink IHOP, I was surprised and right away alerted to see another elder that I grew up with in my old congregation there that he never once mentioned. I felt like it was going to be one-on-one, and then I was surprised when I got there was two sons of bitches waiting for me. Should be some guys dressed kind of nice that just came in. Right here? Okay. Yeah, I think so. Hey guys. How's it? Hey, how you doing? Water or tea would be great. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. Okay. I'll be right back. They didn't tell me there's gonna be two elders here. I immediately knew this was a setup. I still had some hope because I had done LDC with this elder. We had built congregations together. We had built kingdom halls. We had built and done a lot of yard work and maintenance on the assembly hall that was in my area that I grew up. Gone out pioneering together. He would help me on some of my agnostic atheist Bible studies, and he did go off, and I actually, now that I remember it, I had to go have him apologize to some of my Bible studies because he was just so like, this is the way it is, and the other people are being stuck. Some information that I knew just in the area and through knowing the family and knowing a lot of the elders, and then meeting some people that had escaped, I knew that his kids had been through some sexual abuse as well. It was so tough because even he admits that his kids were abused, and he teared up. I wish the camera could have caught his face, and I felt his pain so much I almost started tearing up myself, but my guard was up because I wasn't sure if this was real or not. And then when he started crying, I was like, this is real. And you can even hear him admit several times in the video that
people weren't trained for that. My kids went through the same thing you did, and they have the same mental capacity. It's something you just have to work through and put it behind you. And man, it's been a long time.
It's really hard. They were made to feel, his own family was made to feel like it was the parents' fault and like nothing could be done, and they felt like they were a bad parent and a failure to their own kids. So deep down he knows what happened was wrong, but the way he's rationalizing it in his head is that that's the way things were in the old days. They didn't know any better, and now they know. It was so weird seeing cognitive dissonance from, you see it from other religious people and JWs you meet at carts and that come to your door, but when you see it with people that you grew up with and that you used to look up to and you used to think loved you, it's really sad because the cognitive dissonance is It's right there, and you want to reach out and just like hug them and shake them and say, wake up, I have the answer. You don't have to live your life like this anymore. We were all lied to. We were all treated like shit. I was just surprised at how quickly the main elder went from crying about his own children's abuse to being completely dismissive about my own case.
There's no holes in any policy. Wherever your head's going with that, there's no holes in the policy. The policy is you follow the laws, you follow God's laws, period. We're held by Caesar's laws, we're held by God's laws, which is more than Caesar's laws. So if you're thinking we're not, everything's on the up and up, everything is being done, you just never get done.
Saying that I was dead to them, they didn't care about what I thought about them. There was nothing that they could do, nothing they could be done about my abuser. They refused to look up my case and refused to offer that they would, and that my mom had taken care of it by going to the elders, and they assumed that she went to the cops afterwards, which was never confirmed, but they told me it's done. Stop making a big deal about it, stop dwelling on it, and stop bringing it up. So I asked them, well, what if I was reinstated? And they still refused to confirm anything, that it was done and over with, and I was making a big deal out of nothing. They admitted right away to negligence within the first few minutes of the conversation by just admitting that the elders didn't know what to do, and nobody knew what to do back then. But child abuse has been around for thousands of years, so a big organization or company has to know, especially churches, when you're holding yourself to a higher degree and you are there for families when they don't know what to do, that our only option is to go and ask for help to the elders, because they use scriptures and abuse scriptures to go to holy men before the judges, before police, before governments, because everything is controlled by Satan. I stayed calm while they continually interrupted me, put their own opinions, took everything I said negatively, were assuming the negative, just terrible communication. Like I literally felt like I was going in circles with grown-ass men who were in children's brains inside grown-ass men's bodies. The most hurtful part was when I was actually at the assembly and I found the elder that I went to study with baptism, and then it was confirmed again with the main elder that I was talking to at the IHOP that my mom doesn't go to that assembly hall anymore on Memorial because she couldn't handle seeing me and it'd be too painful for her. And I'm at this point where I've been through so much pain and suffering and crying and depression where those people are toxic. They're fucking toxic, and it's better for me to be away from them as much as possible, even though a huge body of my work and giving back to the XJW community and showing proof and growth and the work we're doing with exposing churches for child abuse and changing the laws over time. The biggest and healthiest thing I can recommend for anyone is recognizing that these people and their thinking, you were raised to be addicted to their approval. You don't need their approval because they're toxic people. And reasoning with someone who thinks that they're right and they have God on their side and has no communication skills whatsoever is really a huge waste of your time. I always give the opportunity, but you always have to remind yourself of that. I even offered, I said the two abusers are still around, and one of them I saw immediately within the first couple of steps into the assembly hall where I grew up. The abuser was right there directing traffic, and they're like, well, that's not much of a privilege. And they dismissed, and I said, I have the names, do something. And they just refused to listen and went around in circles all over again, just proving that they don't give a fuck about children.
What it happened to you, but it's an accusation against somebody else, right?
That's right, that's fine. Then you go and report it, and you go and dig into it, you investigate.
The Bible says at the mouth of two witnesses, right?
Wait, was that?
The Bible says at the mouth of two witnesses, right? That's when everything is considered true, right? So number one, you need two witnesses.
What scripture is this? I would like to see it. After I got them to admit by playing a little dumb on my side and letting them finish their sentences, I got them to admit basically about their hidden policies, and I'd heard online rumors and seen the letters online, but now I had it in person from people that I grew up with. They, of course, diverted me to look at jw.org and that all the safety information was there. I already did that before I went to go see them, and it's all buttered up and soft compared to what their actual policies are, which are hidden. And I got one of the actual elders to admit that they don't share those hidden policies to the public because they don't have to. And then internally they go back to airing their own members so everyone keeps quiet. I held off on sharing this footage for about a year because I was involved with Erwin Zalkin and his law firm. I did email this off to them. If they say to take it down, I will take it down. but enjoy it and spread it as much as possible. The world needs to see this footage. I don't think anyone's gotten this quite on tape, just like this kind of message before. I have a friend who's in law school, and we came to the conclusion that this is inadmissible evidence, and I was recording them under the suspicion of abusing child abuse laws and mandatory reporting laws. We found that many churches, not just the Jehovah's Witnesses, but especially the Catholics, hire lawyers and have so much money that they were all in this together in hiding child abuse over the past 100 years. They made themselves a mandatory loophole in the mandatory reporting system, that nothing can be spoken of during a confession or a penitential communication, which is loosely interpreted by the churches and however they feel at that moment. As much as I'd like to make more moves on this child abuse thing, back in January, the guys that I work with on the language for the bill were all excited for 2020, a little beaten down from 2019. The coronavirus is here, so we're all under quarantine and we're waiting. Everything is on pause at the moment. The state does not give a fuck and does not want to hear about any bill unless it has to do with funding the coronavirus, quarantine, or getting us out of the situation and, you know, giving people money to survive. That's okay. So we're on pause. It doesn't mean the end. I think if enough people hear about this over and over continually, and we get the right ears and the right voices to help join in, it's just a matter of time before we get this law passed. What ended up happening is they believed and relied on telling half-truths, listening to the direction of the governing body. And if you don't know who that is, that's the Jehovah's Witnesses version of the Pope. It's 8 men that control 9 million, almost 9 million active Jehovah's Witnesses and 20 million in yearly attendance for the memorial, which means that's 20 million that are still guilt-ridden. They both proceeded to go around in circles with me and promise that they do have procedures in place to protect children and turn in abusers.
If you do it at one person, you can come back and make an accusation of everybody. He did this, he did that, he did this. What would happen then?
You're assuming the negative
I'm just saying.
instead of assuming the positive and doing the due diligence to find out more.
It comes out to
And I'll tell you one other thing, child abuse doesn't happen with witnesses. These predators make it happen in private, in seclusion. So bringing up a two-witness thing, whatever that scripture is, makes zero sense.
So you investigate it, but how far can you take it?
Is that what you would normally say to a victim?
I'm explaining it to you because you're asking. How far can I investigate it?
And this is a policy.
I'm not going to talk policy.
Is this a policy?
He's not going to explain policy to me. If you come to me and say, this happened, what can I do as a person to say it really happened?
You have to go investigate.
You do it to him, you say no. Now what do I do?
Put the pieces together, do some research, investigate, get the police involved.
How you going to find it if there's no information?
I can't do any medical exams on you.
If there's no information.
No, but you can get a hold of the people that can.
So
Who do we know? There's thousands.
The police! But eventually I was able to get them to open up and admit about the two-witness rule, victim blaming children at the age of 6. I had both of the elders admitting that there was no reason to take a child and give them therapy right away because they were too young to grasp it. Never mind the mandatory reporting, never mind the telling the police and reporting it and doing DNA tests, lie detector tests. Their only reasoning was the two-witness rule, so if the abuser says it didn't happen, then that's as far as they can go. They have to take their word for it, and the victim has to be quiet and the abuser is let free. And then they turn around and blame the parents for not paying more attention, even though growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, you're very, very familiar. The elders are the shepherds of the flock. They are the ones that you are supposed to go to when anything in your life is going wrong for direction. And that's Bible study, comfort, them listening, but also giving you like direction on big problems that could be happening in your life, your marriage, your family, whatever it is. And these guys just aren't qualified. And then what proceeded for the next 90 minutes was victim blaming at its finest. Even me, I felt like I was going crazy a couple of times because they kept going around in circles and circles. And I could see if a kid grew up in this religion, a child or someone who got converted who was looking for answers, it's very easy to lay down the scriptures and the law and make it sound authoritative, but it's the passive aggressiveness of it that can make someone, the victim, feel like they're not doing enough. And that's why something happened and you have to wait for God to fix it. My favorite part where I get this footage was so hard to edit because I kept getting, it took me the better part of 2 weeks plus months and months of not doing it because I just didn't want to, because I knew I would get angry and it would bring up all those emotions, and it was shot POV with a POV camera so I could feel it happening again to me, and I was just angry and frustrated, and I would cry and I would get depressed, and I didn't leave my house for a couple weeks, which, you know, it's quarantine, so that fit right in. I was blown away that one of the elders even admitted that he wouldn't give advice on where to go or where to even start for therapy to the kid because they'd be afraid that some whack job would mess up the kid more, and then it would, who would be there to blame besides that elder? So clear as day that the elders were only worried about themselves and not about the victim.
You know what? I don't really care what you think of me. You know, you're disappointed in me. I've come here, taken time out of my life.
I didn't even know you were going to show up.
Disfellowship is like you're being dead. You can't talk to a dead man.
So you're treating me like I'm a dead man.
Basically.
If I was reinstated, would you look into it?
If it's already been handled, then it's handled.
It was mishandled. So if I was reinstated,
That's it.
would you look into it?
I couldn't tell you nothing what happened in the past.
So if
Help.
I open up the phone book and get you 10 names,
Yeah?
what kind of help would that be? I
Yes.
could pick out the 10 worst
It would be a
doctors
it would be a start. START.
Okay. And it would be a finish when you go to this quack and he messes you up worse than you are right now. And it would be my fault because I said, Cameron, go to this guy.
No.
Why would
No.
it be?
Yeah, we're
I-
not-
you're-
blaming
We
us
can't. We
right now
legally
for
couldn't do
something
that.
Let me finish my sentence. In the meantime, please share this video and the previous memorial video. The world needs to see it. Blast it all over the internet. It's proof. It is literal proof from actual elders that what we were saying all along is true. The world needs to see that the Jehovah's Witnesses do not give a shit. They don't give a shit about you or your children's lives. And religion is it's just not safe to be in as it stands. Besides that, and all the other manipulative tactics they use to force members with low self-worth, low self-esteem, purity culture, shaming the LGBTQ community, stifling people's ability to reason and research and rely on their own brains, ignoring their bodies, all that shit's abusive to begin in the first place. Blows my mind to this day about how an extremist religion like Christianity could have founded its own country and then make the laws and enforce that on the rest of the United States. Now, thankfully, it's a bit more progressive, so we're more like the United Divided. But to dumb people down and to make them fearful of Google and to search things and to question their own feelings. It's just, and then to not listen to other people's sides and points of view, just like Trump when he tells people fake news without actually letting them talk. Teaching intolerance at its finest. I hope this confirms someone's suspicions out there. I hope this sets you free. And I most importantly hope that this helps someone out. Your freedom and your children's freedom and your family is worth it. Your freedom is worth it. If you would like to see more posts from me almost daily, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I just started a Twitter and I'm starting to mess around with there. I've never really gotten into that space, but come say hello to me over there. I'll have links in the bio and the description. I'll keep you posted on these bans. We've got some good news coming up soon. Coronavirus has definitely slowed things down, but I have some positive stuff coming about these on being an ex-Jehovah's Witness and the Freedom is Worth It bans, or just being ex-religious as possible. Till then, to all my real brothers and sisters, I'll see you in the next video. This is what you're gonna tell a 6-year-old?
Well, they don't have that. You just try to do the best when you can.
So if this happens right now to a baby or a child,
how are you going to help a little 6-year-old?
by doing the right thing.
Give me some examples.
Mandatory reporting, providing psychology help,
that's done.
getting them hooked up
That's
with all
done.
that stuff.
That's done.
No, you just said like 20 seconds ago they would
Years
go
ago.
get their own help.
Years ago.
I'm talking about now.
Now it's done. It's done.
And you're not answering the question either.
We're
What's
not
it? Where are you going with that?
the child's parent. That would be the parent's responsibility.
But growing up
Yes, it is.
JW, you're taught to go to the elders for help.